I'm saying? Where do Black people fall in the scope of things? Because if you research Africans or Blacks in response to coronavirus, you're gonna see a lot of articles that are gonna say it's so slick how they do it. They're gonna say Africa preparing for coronavirus. Coronavirus is about to hit Africa.
Right.
Africa's on the edge. Coronavirus on the edge of Africa. Is Africa ready? Like, it's this big thing, but there's nothing that says, coronavirus smashes Africa. Africa dying by the millions. Oh man, look at the outbreak in Africa from this coronavirus. Why is that not happening? Well, I told you Raas, that deals with Ra, and that's the sun. Corona, that deals with the sun. Africa, you can't get more solar than that. We solar people. So you know that got something to do with it. And I'm gonna tell you shortly. Now, you would think that the coronavirus would be running rampant in Africa right now, because as I start off with this conversation, what did I say? I said that the traffic between Asia, or rather China, and Africa is tremendous, because they have vested interest in Africa for resources, and Africans are utilizing China for opportunity. So they're going in and studying and learning. So this is back and forth going on. They have not stopped the flights from China to Africa. They're still flying people in. So why isn't there thousands of people dying? Why isn't there 500 infected? They want to say, oh, they don't have the infrastructure to test, which is a lie, because based on the statistics with Ebola, they pretty much created an infrastructure for testing for viral infections and outbreaks and stuff, because that happened 2-3 years ago. So it's a situation where everybody's waiting for something to happen, and something ain't happened yet. Well, let's rewind. Did you know? Well, of course y'all know this. Rich, you know this. You know, when it comes to the difference between Blacks and Caucasians, Africans and Caucasians, indigenous, whatever you want to call it, and Caucasians, we have higher blood pressure, right?
Right.
What's the main thing they usually tell us that we need to reduce in our diet in order to reflect drop in our blood pressure?
Is that the salt?
Ah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, do you know what salt is on the periodic table? Like, what's its symbol?
No.
Now, you would think it would start with an S, because salt is sodium, right?
Yeah.
You would think sodium would be SOD or S something, right? Or SM.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually Na. And Na stands for natron, as in nectar and nature. Salt is the mechanism in which melanin is produced. What about that? So we have a gene called SLC24A5, and we also have that this is a gene. So that's the code for the gene. So let's say a gene is a section of the DNA, and another way to simplify that would be a gene represents a file, a certain file on the hard drive of a computer. You would use a USB to pull that file off, just like you create RNA in order to pull that particular gene off of your DNA, okay? So SLC24A5 is the name of the file, right? But NCKX5 is the coding for this particular protein that's made from that gene. This is a potassium-dependent sodium-calcium exchanger, meaning it's a gateway in the membrane of your melanosomes that deal with the regulation of salt entering in, so that tyrosinase, which is the enzyme, the copper-containing enzyme that produces your melanin, is able to produce melanin. Then you have TPC2, which is I forget what TPC2. It's like a couple pour. What is it? It's pores T-pour couple 2. I forget what it's called exactly, but it's that it is. Yeah, it is. T is 2 pour channel 2. So the T is 2, the P is pour, the C is channel, because it's another channel. TPC2. So TPC2 reduces melanin production by being a gateway that releases salt from the melanosome. So the salt is utilized in order to create melanin, but there's a mechanism that will pump the salt out of the melanosome, and that will create the lack of something being melanated. So you're talking vitiligo, you're talking pallor of certain neural bodies where they're losing melanin. This is happening because of this mechanism here. But what is the thing on fire? It's the sodium. It's the salt that does it. So salt is responsible. Remember what I said earlier? I said salt is what water follows. Wherever you see salt go, water's going to follow that. Now, why does salt and melanin correlate? Because what is melanin's super function? What is the super function of melanin? Melanin has the ability to do the same thing that plants do in photosynthesis, and that is to disassociate the water molecule. It knows how to take a water molecule and break it up into its constituent pieces. And why is that important? That's important because of the easy zone, the exclusion zone. The exclusion zone is a phenomenon that occurs when infrared light ends up hitting water and the water charge separates. It ends up structuring into a hexagonal lattice like ice is, that is made up completely of negative ions, and it pushes all the protons out, the acid out, and even anything larger than protons and stuff out, which would be toxins and things like that. That's what happens with the easy zone. And what melanin is able to do is it's able to disassociate water and actually create exclusion zones with the water. Because the other thing melanin is known for that everybody recognizes is the fact that when UV is constantly hitting the body, when you got melanin, you could take that UV and use it. How do you use it? The same way when you was back in a deli at the corner store in New York and you would get one of them heroes or them sandwiches real quick, they would take that big hunk of meat and throw it on the deli slice and start slicing the thin slices so that you could put it on and you could eat it. That's what melanin does with UV energy. It's like a deli slicer. It puts UV on that thing and starts slicing it down in the infrared and blue light and green light and yellow light.
Woo!
So that you can wrap those lights in and you can use that light and not get damaged by the UV. So why is China getting messed up and we not getting messed up? Because China got pollution blocking their sun. China is an area that doesn't get any UV. China has over 10,000 5G stations stacked everywhere. And what does it say about 5G? 5G, there's a research paper. Y'all can look it up right now. The research paper clearly states that the 5G technology in vivo tissues is able to increase in an exploding manner the replication of viral and bacterial bodies. So you might not even be infected to the point where you having any real problems, but the 5G technology causes an explosion of replication of the virus, which will then lead to you having more fatal symptoms that could hurt you. Okay. Black folks retain salt. Caucasians do not retain salt. I'm gonna say that again. I know y'all seen the clip of Black Panther on SNL when we was on Black Jeopardy, and he was talking about
the potato salad.
The potato
salad to your cookout. Uh-oh, T'Challa.
I think I'm getting the hang of this. Before I answer, a few questions. This woman, Karen, she is Caucasian, eh?
Yes.
And she has her own recipe for potato salad, eh?
Yeah.
Ah, I understand. It is noble that she would volunteer to cook for everyone. And although I have never had potato salad,
of course,
I sense that this white woman does not season her food.
That's right.
And if she does, it is only with a tiny bit of salt.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And no paprika.
No paprika, no.
And she will probably add something unnecessary like raisins.
I know, right?
So something tells me that I should say...
Say it!
Oh, hell nah, Karen. Keep your brand-ass potato salad to yourself.
Salad with the raisins?
Yeah.
Because we all know, and this ain't no racist thing, bro, Caucasians ain't really the spice people like that. I mean, you get into chefs and cooks and Food Network and all that, you can insert certain artistic flair, then yeah, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, you go over to the average person house, you look on Google and look at recipes, they're not really into using salt like that. And most of the studies that you see online state that people have to decrease their salt intake in order to lower their blood pressure, right? We're supposed to have salt in our body. We're supposed to be taking at least 5 grams. That's more than double what they're recommending you to take. You see what I'm saying? So if y'all do the research and study salt, you're gonna see that. So we're retaining salt. They're not retaining salt. What does that mean when it comes to the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system? Well, the only reason why renin is getting secreted is because there's low blood pressure, or rather there's low sodium in the body. That's what's doing it. That's what's activating the renin, the Raas system. The Raas system is what's leading you to the respiratory and the lung issues. You see, but people that are melanated have different things going on. One, you have the situation where you're retaining salt, so your renin numbers are lower than Caucasians. If a black person and a white person goes to a lab and gets themselves tested, the levels of renin secreted from the black brother versus the white individual is going to be a lot lower. Yet their salt levels are going to be higher because they need that salt for their melanin, because their melanin uses it to charge separate water in order to use the water and the infrared that they're making on their deli slicer to create this negative ion layer of charge that the body can dip into in order to take energy from. Another thing that Raas does is it deactivates nitrogen oxide. Which what does that do? That prevents vasodilation. When you get up in the morning and you salute the sun, see, this is the third reason why the coronavirus is important, because sunlight, the lack of sunlight is the reason why it's a epidemic in China, because they're not getting any sun. It's happening in wintertime, huh? They having dry coughs, okay? Their pollution blocks out the sun. They got 5G. All of these solar dampening mechanisms are happening. You see?
You know what's weird, KT? I don't mean to cut you off. What's weird is that if you live in New York City, if you notice during the summertime, Asian people have the umbrella out during the summertime more than any other group. Like they really come outside with their umbrella. I always wondered that when I was younger. They'd be out there with the umbrella when it's
melanoma, which is a skin cancer of where melanocytes kind of turn cancerous in a sense, and they just start blackening everything to the point tissue is getting destroyed. You know, you have a cancerous situation. That happens to individuals that are not constantly in the sun. So what happens is they go from not having no sun to jumping in very intense sunlight, and that is what triggers that mechanism, in addition to a lot of other factors that happen as well. Okay. You know, but it has a lot to do with the salt and amongst other things. So, like I said, the Raas drops nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator. Okay, if you inhibit a vasodilator and all you're doing is secreting a molecule that represents vasoconstriction, vasopressin. Some vasoconstriction means you tighten in the vessels. Okay, so now you tighten in the vessels and you dropping my nitric oxide out. So that means that I'm straight high blood pressure with it. And if you high blood pressure, if you not getting no sun, if you're not breathing, you're not able to create oxygen. That's the other thing melanin does. When melanin charge separates water, you know what else it does? It secretes oxygen to the surrounding tissues. So you know how Sadie would always talk about, you know, it can't live around oxygen, everything like that. Melanin is an oxygen reservoir, as it's dealing with all of these frequencies, providing tissues with ample amount of oxygen.